So thank you so much for tuning into our first edition of Hoppy Hour. If you have any comments or suggestions, please visit thunderbaylive.com and let us know what you think or things you might like to see on future shows. Thank you so much. So welcome everybody to the very first edition of Hoppy Hour, which might only be 5 minutes, but we will make the best of it for sure. This show will be all about beer in Thunder Bay. It will be about craft beer, it'll be about awesome beer, it'll be about where you can get beer, what you can do with beer, everything that has to do with beer. So we're super excited to be starting this show. And I'm very honored to have as my first guest, Josh from Muskoka Brewing. Josh has come to us all the way from Sudbury. So Josh, welcome to Thunder Bay.
Yeah, second visit here in town. I love it so far. It's been great. But before we start, might as well cheers.
I love cheersing.
Start off the happy hour.
Cheers.
Start off one sort of tradition here.
Absolutely. My favorite Muskoka Brewing beer, Mad Tom IPA.
Yeah, Carrie's famous for bringing Muskoka to Thunder Bay, actually. She was the one that got us in, kept calling, nagging. Nagging's good. And by the end of it, actually, it looked quite like a success after all. Coming down here, seeing the beers and seeing how much craft breweries have changed. So it is neat, and I'm glad to be here.
Oh, thank you. Well, we are super happy to have you here. And you're in a lot of bars and restaurants in town now.
Yeah, we have got a couple of accounts that are pouring, and by all means, it's a big IPA town for the most part. Coming from Sudbury, known more specifically for having a lot of easier drinking beers. Here's been more of a Mad Tom crowd, so it's been interesting to see a culture change so far.
Well, we have very mature palates here in Thunder Bay. So IPA, for those of you who don't know, stands for an India Pale Ale, which means that it's a hoppier beer with a really strong citrus flavor, a little bit of bitterness to it. It is my personal favorite style of beer, and Mad Tom IPA really tops the charts, so nice. We're happy to be drinking it for sure. Good. Tell me a little bit about Muskoka Brewery itself, Josh. When did it open?
Okay, so the brewery started in '96 by the gentleman of Gary McMullen. Gary McMullen is still the president and founder. He started off as a head brewer, and then basically they moved to a new location because of expansion in 2012. Now they went from a total of, I'd call it about 11 full-time in 2009, roughly, to about over 65 now, and still counting and adding by the week. So it's kind of neat in the sense, I just started with Muskoka in July of this past year, and so we're finally bringing beer to the north. And it seems that we're dipping into other provinces now, so we're starting out in BC, as well as dipping into the States, Carrie.
That is so cool. That is
pretty
so
stoked.
Cool. That's awesome. That makes me so happy. Now, I would love it if you could just tell us the story of why Mad Tom is called Mad Tom, because this is my favorite beer story.
Well, there's 3 stories.
Oh, I wonder which one I love.
And exactly, that's the thing, that's the beauty of it. So I'm not even going to tell it, because there's 3 options you can actually go with the story. One is about an old grumpy man who had changed the bottles. We initially had cans and bottles, and he didn't want a certain fashion, so he was upset. So we called him a beer after we had our IPA introduced as Mad Tom. So one of the reasons why we had him is because he called us in and said, you know, he's pretty upset about this transition, and so we said, all right, let's call it Mad Tom. And it stuck with us. It's been going on for quite some time now, the IPAs. But in 2009, we kind of introduced it in 2008, and then it's transitioned to everyone's liking these big beers. So we were the first ones to bring it over to Ontario, the Ontario craft brewers for the IPA. Neat.
That is really neat. And that was my favorite story. I love that story. So what else I think is really cool about Muskoka Brewing is that you are available in the LCBO and the beer store, which isn't typical for craft breweries.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So essentially, yeah, we've gone into LCBOs, we're into beer stores, and then, like you said, even out here, getting into some licensees as well as change is definitely where you need to solidify your market and figure out where people want to go, and if they're into it, they like it at the restaurant level, then they get it at the beer store and the LCBO, which has been great. Huge success for us, and been around since '96, which is quite hard to believe because craft breweries are starting to pop up everywhere, but collectively it's been quite the game for craft breweries around this area and in Northern Ontario specifically.
Fantastic. I love to see the craft beer revolution happening right here in my city. I think it's awesome. So I went to your website.
Okay.
I loved it. And what I really liked about your website, Josh, was the food and beer pairings portion.
Yes.
People always think of wine as being paired with food. More and more now people are seeing that beer and food is really, really awesome as well. Do you have anything in your mind that is your favorite thing to pair? So say you had a detour or a Mad Tom, what do you suggest? What's your favorite pairing?
So yeah, it actually varies. We did one beer event actually in North Bay, and it was my first time having the head brewer down, and he came in and we had basically every beer was paired with a certain food. So we started off with it was peas with actual horseradish on top for the craft lager, and it kind of just mixed and matched, and it was kind of neat in that sense. But a lot of the food pairings we have seen is like bigger foods, like say steaks, to cut well with IPAs, like the Detour or the Mad Tom, and same with salads as well. I've been good and known for the Detour because of its almost, let's call it, tropical flavor notes. Very easy, but for the most part, I mean, it's been quite an interesting change from wines to beers where people have elevated their knowledge on it and education on that. So it's been cool. I can't really pinpoint one specifically.
Just beer and chips.
Just beer and food. Yeah, beer and food's good.
That's awesome. Well, I know that you have a lot of traveling and visiting to do today, so we'll wind it up. I sure appreciate you being my very, very first guest.
Yeah.
I'm super pumped.
I'm pleasure, and it's a pleasure, and it's quite neat to be the first account and be on TV now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
awesome.
First account.
Yay. Okay, well, thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Cheers
Josh.
again.
Oh,
Close
cheers
off.
to you again. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.